And welcome to the Power of Eight. This is our 15th podcast in this series. Today we are covering chapter 14 from the Power of Eight. You can see it here. And this chapter is the Twin Towers of Peace. The author describes how using the power of eight, transforming the Twin Tower incident, taking that day, and instead of um, going through and replaying the visions that we had typically seen on our televisions, how do we transform that into more of a day of peace? And I think there's one quote here that I love is, what action can we take to bring visionary solutions into the world? So I really believe that's what the intention experiment was. There's wonderful data to back that. Um, and a lot of this is about what is the power of our intentions again. So a lot of that throughout this book, one of the main drivers here. So Pollyanna, um, co-host Pollyanna is with us as well as me being the co-host. So welcome everybody. Pollyanna, what were your takeaways from chapter 14, the Twin Towers of Peace?
Thanks, Jennifer. I'm happy to be here again with you. One of the things I'm just going to read it out, and then it was where she talked about many people in the power of eight circles. This was before she got into this particular larger experiment. Were connecting so closely with their focus targets that they experienced the same effects. And she gave one specific example of, in one workshop in the Middle East, we sent intention to heal the arthritis that the person Mahud was suffering in his right hip. And 4 of the group suffering pain from arthritis also felt markedly better after sending Mahud intention. And so, when we talk about, like, when you were mentioning the transforming the memory and the experience and around the 9/11 event, it just, the power of intention, when we're focused, there's the focusing on healing, sending healing energy to an individual person. And I think more and more people are feeling that maybe that could be more possible, and this book definitely shows that it is. When it comes to something like a large catastrophic event like 9/11, sometimes I feel like people that I've encountered have shared, oh, I don't know if I could have any impact. And what I love about this chapter is that it highlights and reemphasizes and illustrates with actual data how important it is that we remember the power of our intentions, so that we can be that new earth together. We can co-create it together. We can transform through our collective energies and the old experiences into something healing, into something uplifting, into something restorative. And that's what I really loved about this chapter, is that, an event like 9/11 is so massive that I feel sometimes in the face of it, the fear that comes up for people is the fear that I'm powerless over these huge
Mm.
events. And what I love about this chapter is it flips that around and says, you have this incredible power, we each do, within ourselves, that if we just shift our focus to that and gather, as she had people gather in the peace experiment for 9/11, and join and link arms and join forces, the amount of decrease in violence that went down. There's a lot of data in this chapter that goes into that. Attacks, violent outbursts. It was marked, and it was similar to the experiments in Sri Lanka too. So
Mhm.
again, what I love about this book is it takes it from the personal level, on a smaller group scale, to that collective global level. And this, I feel, is part of what we're meant to be discovering, that's emerging through all of us, which is the new earth consciousness, is that I love the Einstein quote. That's what's just popping into my head right now.
I
You
love
can't solve a
Einstein quotes
level.
too.
You know the one, yeah. We quote it all the time. You can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that it was created. And these experiments exemplify that, that if we keep spinning the same old stories that we saw in the news over and over again, where does that leave us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to, you had said a couple of things, just shifting your focus. And that's so key, shifting the focus. And then looking at I'm only talking about this because this is in this specific chapter and I think everybody can relate to it. But replaying the scenes of that day, that just keeps that energy stuck. That's just that story that we keep stuck. And if we're not refocusing our intention for the vision that we would like to see, then you're going to keep replaying that over and over and over and not move forward with the intentions of peace and love. And that's the direction that this chapter is really talking about. But we can also take that macro level view that all of us can relate to, that one story, but take it down to just our own story in life. That's the lesson that we really want to get from this chapter is, how does that relate just to our life? If we keep replaying the old story of what we didn't like over and over, you keep that stuck. It's like you keep that energetic stuck in you. You've got to overwrite it. You've got to, what is it that you do want? Refocus on what you want. And that's what you're going to bring into the world. You taught consciousness was something else that you mentioned. And that is that is one way that you can lift your consciousness state, is to just focus on all the good until that's what you see around you.
And I so agree. And I feel an important piece of that is to acknowledge the shadow, right? Because, the shadow is the the part of us that is fearful, the part of us that um, is, we, whether it's on the collective level, something that we've watched on the news, experience loss from, on a personal level too, or something else, a physical condition, um, a loss of a job or loss of a family member, whatever the case might be, that there are parts of us that come up that are scared or sad. And I feel that's part of the transformation too, because the light of our awareness, like, for as I see it, consciousness is awareness. Like, that's a synonym
Mhm.
for it. So it's like the consciousness that we can shine, like the awareness that we can shine on, recognizing those parts of us that are keeping us stuck in those pain loops, keeping us stuck in recycling, um, and reliving the trauma, whatever the case might be, and love those parts of us without judgment, without criticism, rather than pushing them aside, into that love, into that compassion, into that embrace. Then that's how we return to wholeness. And that's how, like, if you think about a flashlight, right? If there, or even, I'm going to actually, rather than, well, I want to use a flashlight because I'm talking about light, but I believe I've seen them, inside the flashlight. They're those little, I'm not an engineer, I know you are, but back then, but they're like, I don't know what you call them, but they're those little, like, individual circles of light. And I'm imagining that some of those could be out. And so if you want the fullest amount of light to shine through, you need all of the pieces inside to be illuminating. If just one or two are, you have light, but it's dimmer. And it's not because it's a bad flashlight, right? It's just because those need help being illuminated, right? Coming back online. So that's kind of how I see it, that it's, yeah, we just, the, sometimes to get to back to focusing on the good requires that bit of repair. And she talks about that too, with the forgiveness as well, right?
Mhm.
That was a big part. And it was very interesting because when she was meeting with, and I want to honor his name because he is the Deepak Chopra, she was saying, of the Middle East, Dr. Salah al-Rashid. I hope I'm saying that correctly. and that when they gathered for the experiment, he was going to express forgiveness on behalf of all Arabs. And then Lynne McTaggart also wanted to acknowledge that, well, he was going to ask for forgiveness on part of all Arabs, and she was going to ask for forgiveness on part of all Westerners, because there were so many losses of innocent lives. And there was someone from Amnesty International, former, what was his name? Former, I have it here, sorry. Yeah, James O'Dia, former head of the Washington Bureau of Amnesty International, who witnessed public trials in such war-torn areas as Rwanda, convinced me that one of the fastest routes to restoring accord is frank and public apology for past wrongdoing. So it's acknowledging the shadow, acknowledging the darkness, so that the healing can begin, right? Mm-hmm. And then we can focus on restoration, right? I feel like that's really, really important. Yeah.
And forgiveness, right? Yeah. The forgiveness, the energy of, once you recognize something, then the energy of forgiveness is so wonderful, because, forgiving others. And then I was always taught, and forgive yourself for things that you may not know, because there could be some unconscious things. I mean, we're constantly pulling things up, healing them, right? So yeah, forgiveness, the energy of forgiveness is quite powerful.
It is. Mm-hmm. And when you think of it, it's at the heart of every spiritual practice, forgiveness, mm-hmm. right? And so I just really felt inspired to raise that point, because it was in the chapter, and mm-hmm. because I feel like sometimes when we're drawn to the inner awakening journey in the beginning, and we've been through difficult times, we're seeking the light of awareness, and then it can almost feel like when we recognize that forgiveness is a necessary step in the expansion process, sometimes there can be internal resistance to it, because there's more fear there, because of the shame, because of the self-judgment, because of the grief and the loss. And so I think it's really important, and I'm glad she mentioned it in her own process. And I think and sense that that's why the data reflects like such powerful results in terms of shifts in the violence, because when violence is so much comes from a state of lack, and when we are seeking reunification and unity consciousness, it's about how do we remember the interconnectedness again, and so dissolving any of that, it's the same. It's the same thing with they're really illusions, right? Like, I mean, they're very real, but on another level, they're illusions, because it's almost like chasing our shadow, right? In a circle. It's not the truth, right? But we can spend a long time doing that, and it can cause a lot of suffering and struggle. And so, yeah. Anyways, I'm going on, but yeah. What else stood out for you in the chapter? Is there anything?
I would just like to touch one more point on forgiveness, because it is at the root of every spiritual practice, anybody I've learned from before, but it's at the root of any mindset class, any sort of manifestation class. Anybody you're listening to is going to talk about forgiveness, because it's so fundamental on shifting, on moving forward. And it comes up again and again, because you'll shift, and then there's more that you learn, and then more forgiveness. And so the forgiveness exercise, which you can do journaling, there's many, many different ways to do it. It's there as a tool for people to help shift, to help move into that higher vibration also. So I think that's important. Yeah, there, with this chapter, and because it's being trying to be proven scientifically, Lynn goes through great lengths of pulling out data. So there's lots of data in here to show that whenever they had the intention, this peace experiment, this peace intentions around this day, that there were significant, they made significant strides. I'll just this is out of the book on page 151, but she's talking about the comparison of data and results. And she said there is an extraordinary 790% decrease over the month before and a 29% decrease for the entire year compared to 2010. And then the trend carried on where they were seeing less and less violence. She had a little bit of problems getting the correct data from people. I was surprised by that. Like, what is not actually recorded out there in the 3D world? What what is recorded and what isn't recorded? That stuck out to me too. Like, wow. And that was she just mentions that in a few sentences, but I caught that as well.
That's a
Yeah.
good observation. I
Yeah.
like the part too that you mentioned about the forgiveness being like an ongoing cycle too, that like
Mhm.
it's a cycle. It's not like you do it once and that's it, right? Because
Mhm.
we're continually growing, expanding. And the thought just popped into my mind too as you were sharing the data, which is phenomenal, right? That she was able
Mhm.
to get that, if you think about when people are like scrolling social media or now we've got I don't know, probably in other places too, I'm sure it's everywhere, but I know here in Toronto there's a news station where it's on 24/7 and it's just running on a loop. It's not like a news hour. It's just, and so you might be, I don't know, going for an appointment somewhere. Even I was at the dentist recently and they had it on, and I asked if they would put it on mute because you can also read the ticker tape at the bottom, because I really
Mhm.
didn't want to. I thought
Right.
this is a place of, with all respect, this is a place of wellness. This doesn't make me feel well, you know, you
Exactly.
know, and and so it's this like nonstop possibly not, it's a choice, and I hear it both ways. I mean, obviously there are people that's, it's interesting how that never used to be the case. You'd flip through magazines in a doctor's office or a dentist's office, and now it's
Mhm.
like the steady stream of news, and it's just curiosity. I wonder what would happen if, well, I think we know it would happen, but just imagining the possibility that if instead of that being, the space in between waiting for your appointment, because she uses video in her experiment, right? There was, I think,
Mhm.
different
Oh, yeah.
people sharing video. She mentioned on a large screen, like one was an indigenous peace pipe ceremony, and then other creative things that people shared in honor of the intention. Wouldn't
Mhm.
it be amazing if we had in these TVs, where we're just, shifting gears from one place to another appointment, something there, about focusing on peace, or, you know, just helping
Yeah.
support us to bring our awareness to new possibilities and creative visionary solutions, and just even to make us feel good and inspired, and
Yeah.
and help us remember it's, you know again, media is just a tool and we're using it to ourselves right now. So it just, there's so many
It would
new
definitely shift. It would
potentials,
definitely
right?
shift
Yeah,
the collective consciousness if that's all we had to watch was more inspirational things. I mean, people can do this experiment on their own at home, right? If people are engaged in the news that's not so good, just shut it off for a couple months and turn on some positive things and see how your life shifts. It's really easy to do. It's not that hard, you
yeah,
know. It's just not that hard. I think sometimes people get caught up in the dramas, and that in itself is a little bit of an addiction. You know,
yeah,
an addiction to get out of um, because it's not helping anyone.
yeah. And you're right too. I mean, like that addiction is, we can get hooked into those those spikes in our emotions, and in the fear, we get addicted to certain emotions through the
Mhm.
stories and things like that. There's one time I looked up, I'm like, is there the positive news? And I found a place that was positive news.
You did.
Yeah, so it's like it's out there. I feel like just having it become more accessible, like just it's accessible, but just it's that shift in consciousness. So this is, I guess, why we're here sharing all of this right now.
Yeah,
That's my
it
intention,
is. And
for
I had talked to Medina, who does, she's from Australia and she does podcasts as well. And I was watching some of hers whenever I was talking to her. I'm like, you're like the kind of the good news network, right? So I think we're all doing our part and sharing good news and trying to let people know what we know, what we've experienced. But we don't have. We need to be on a major network. That's what we need to do.
one day, right?
We're not reaching the masses yet.
Yeah, it's such a powerful tool, and I feel like that's, at least because we always talk about the chapter and more.
Mhm.
I've been noticing shifts around me, especially this week going back into the classroom. There's a lot of joy. I was sharing that with you just before
Mhm.
we hopped on here together live, and in a way I haven't quite felt or sensed before to this degree, because oftentimes in the past, there've been so many changes, in the world, and we've had to adapt to so many things in education, and with that, human beings, we tend to sometimes resist change. That's pretty normal, right? And dig our heels in. This year, this past week has felt really joyous. There's just been a lot of joy, a lot of celebration, and just positivity, and I want to stay tuned into this channel. How about you? What have you been noticing?
Yeah, I mean, I notice the same. I really believe that as we change, each individual, as I change myself, as you change, as each person changes, that reflects on our outside reality.
Yes.
So, and then other people are doing the same. So, see, we're all kind of lifting. But that's what my experiences have been. The more inner work you do, the more your outer reality follows that.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
And that's where even our intention together from reading this book and sharing it with all of you has been, and we've got the landing page up now too. Um, we mentioned it in the last show, and I think that was the first time we mentioned it, right? That we
Mhm.
are looking to start our very own Power of Eight group. And if you would like to be someone who would like to volunteer to either send or receive energy as a part of this group, there's a landing page at meetthelight.com. I think it's / power of eight. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Okay, I got it
Yeah,
right.
that is correct. And what we have initially thought of doing was more from, what sort of healing do people need, which I think is good because that's more tangible for results that we can show. Um, but then whenever I read this chapter, they're talking about the Power of Eight groups really supporting a lot of different things. Like on the very first page, uh, Dinah was one of the girls who asked for to receive some positivity, and she needed support to overcome her fear of not having enough money.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed, and because of that support and because of the Power of Eight, she was able to overcome that fear and be able to move along with some of the projects that she found joyful, some of the expressions she wanted to give out in the world, to help those projects move forward. Because if we can let go with some of these energetics, fear of whatever it may be, and it's really being conscious of that, letting it go, and you just keep digging deeper, and you let go of all these energetics that may be internalized. Um, because when you have those within you, that pushes away the manifestation that you're trying to bring in. It's not congruent to what you are trying to call into your world. So once you can do that and release things that don't serve you, then manifesting becomes much easier. And all the people, places, opportunities, everything just falls into place for you with ease.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so this was kind of inspiring to say, wow, we could really do so much with the power of eight, you know? Definitely helping people heal, because I think the physical body is important to heal.
Mhm.
But then there's a lot of other, healing all of our energetic bodies is what we can also focus on those as well.
Yes. And it's what I love about what she shared in the book so far is that whether you're the person who's the recipient of the healing or part of the group that's sending the healing, I mean, we both know this as Reiki practitioners. Every time I offer a Reiki session to someone or healing session to someone as a clear channel, I receive a healing as well. I mean,
Mhm.
it's how can it not be that way, right? Because at the end of the day, all there is love, right?
Mhm.
That's all there is. That's the truth. And it's that restoration of the truth and that reassures the body of form, the mind of form, our emotions, our spirit, that all is truly well, that we're okay, everything's okay. And we then it, like you shared, it becomes easier to shift into that divine creative flow of you know um, giving and receiving, and it just, there's a lot more ease because the resistance, internal resistance, has dissolved,
Mhm.
and we're trusting more.
Trusting.
Yeah.
That would kept popping into my mind too. Trust, and the trust. Yeah. Very necessary. Mhm. The other thing that was, I thought was important, uh, I'll say this quote again, but she said, "What can each of us do to take action to bring our visionary solutions into the world?" I think that's important. And she talked about, I thought this was kind of funny. She was going to give a speech on the power of thoughts and how they affect. Well, here it says the power of thoughts to affect reality. So how do the power of our thoughts, how does it affect our reality? And she was giving that speech to a group of people. But what I wanted to point out was, because she didn't know how they were going to take what she had to say, like if they would believe about how powerful our thoughts were. But she said, she didn't know how happy they would be to engage in the distinctly Western New Age ideas. And I thought, it's not a New Age idea. I have a book from 1902, Thoughts Become Things. This has been around for forever,
Yeah.
that our intentions are so powerful. I mean, it's in books everywhere, it's all around us.
And even as a artist soul and someone who's like, I teach visual art, and I've made my own art, and I've studied art, when I was in school. um, if you want to create anything, it starts with an intention, right? And
Mhm,
how you think about what you're creating and how it unfolds. It's you can't separate the two. It's so much more than a new age thought. Again, I think it's because we've been programmed in a fairly like materialistic world, like a with its five senses, that anything that suggests that we can maybe, I just think we have blocks sometimes, and that's okay, and that's the fun of being here. We get to dissolve them all. We get to, it's a rich playground of opportunities to explore all kinds
mhm.
of mental jungle gyms, and
That's
and
true.
because I don't know, that's something I've been reflecting on in my own life recently. It's been even more present because the the mental Velcro. I used to think, I mean, it's the emotional Velcro too, but also the mental Velcro, because, and I've shared this in other episodes about, I guess there's sort of like mental strongholds that we have. And also because, and you know this really well, Jennifer, and a lot of other people listening out there are familiar with this, that a lot of our thoughts are even not we're not consciously aware of them, like the beliefs that we have. So this is why I think that with the mind, especially, like, emotions tend to kind of bubble up to the surface, and we feel them, whereas thoughts can be under our radar. And and also, of course, if there's a disconnect between the two and we're not seeing it, then that just muddies the waters even more. So ultimately, it's that capacity that we have inside of us, to that willingness to be curious, to
Mhm.
um to as we I find one of the there are always these major sort of core teachings in manifestation, in spiritual awakening, about, release the judgment, so that way we can be curious, we can explore, and we can unwind and unpack some of these places where we hold ourselves back. And that's where the beautiful, they're not even problems. They're problems from a certain level of awareness. And then as we start to loosen the grip of our attachment to those beliefs and ways of perceiving, they're no longer problems, they're opportunities, or they're
Yeah.
gifts. And that's the beautiful thing, is like, how is it it's like two people looking at the same thing, and one person, the glass half full, glass half empty, right? As
Mhm.
our perception shifts and changes, then so too are we. And this is what we're all ready for right now. This is
It is, it
before every
is,
single
and I
person.
love that. I think it's important to emphasize that when we come across something that we think may be a potential issue or problem, there's tons of opportunity in that. In anything that we're doing, if there's any sort of business that we're doing, just life in general, as we, you know, um, that is always true. There's a huge opportunity there to
Mhm.
make things better. So
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot.
And you were saying something too about manifestation also that caught my attention. I'm just trying to circle back to it. There's something I felt guided to share, just because you were talking about how important it is to really be. You said something. I'm just trying to circle back to it. I don't know if I can remember it now. If
Well,
it's
I'm not sure, but maybe that'll come up later, but, talking about thoughts that we may not even realize, like, what we're thinking, and that's true, that does happen, but the more and you know this too, the more we quiet our minds,
Mhm.
the more we can hear what we're actually saying. I mean, that will come to the surface on some of these thoughts that we have, and, whenever I'm trying to manifest something in to my world, no matter what it is, it could be something small or large, I always ask myself, what do I have to believe in order for this to happen? What do I have to believe? And sometimes you'll see right away where your limited beliefs are. That's how sometimes I raise up some of those beliefs, or watching what happens in the outside world. Like what's coming back to me, and what's the information I'm getting from that, because that reflects what some of my beliefs are. And
Mhm.
and then you can train yourself to, learn how to believe bigger and how to let go of limited beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah, there was something in that, because it was this again, the finding the message, like you were talking about, the what's the learning. And even earlier on, before too, when I was mentioning that part about when we are facing those parts of us we haven't wanted to look at, I feel more and more it's really the work is that's the inner work of being willing to, like you mentioned, quiet the mind is a really important way,
Mhm,
you know, trust, go into that place and space of non-judgment and compassion, ultimately,
mhm,
where we are open to the possibility of learning from this experience, rather than just getting stuck in repeating it and just saying it is what it is, right?
mhm,
It is what it is because of certain beliefs. It is what it is because of what we're tapped into and tuned into and plugged into. And as soon as we are willing to consider another way of looking at what we've been looking at,
Another perspective, a
another
fresh
perspective,
perspective.
yeah,
Yeah.
then things can shift in a millisecond, right? We've
Mhm,
all had
mhm.
those lightning bolt moments, those aha moments, and it's not just in the mind. It's like it's that deeper, even felt sense. I don't know about you, but like for me, like that felt sense is how I describe it, where sometimes those really big laser moments come in of clarity, and it's beyond what my mind can comprehend at first, and then it has to almost like stretch to meet up with that sort of felt sense. It's like a felt sense
Mhm.
awareness, like that something just my whole body sort of almost like a pendulum or like a ping or a ding or
Yeah, well, it feels
lights
like
up.
to me, it feels like I don't know, it just feels like the
Because
it
it's
feels like
beyond
there's
words, right?
something like, okay, yes, like you just it's like it's anchored in your heart. It's like it's
Mhm.
there,
Yeah.
and it's a feeling. I mean, I feel it. Is that what you're talking about? Is
Yeah,
that the same for you?
I sometimes call it even like a full body yes,
Okay.
where there's like no room for, well, or, like
Mhm.
there's none of those like doubts or things coming in. It's just like in the moment,
So
it's a strong,
so
just full
so
body
try to
yes.
describe that. I have had, similar things reactions with my body, and it in one description that I can give, I wanna see if you feel the same
Okay,
way,
I'm
if this is what
curious.
you're talking about, is like, it feels like if you could like all the cells in your body, it feels like they're vibrating like this. It's like they're lighting up, lighting up, lighting up, like, "Yes, yes, yes." That's how it feels, it's a feeling.
Yeah, it is a feeling. I actually I like how you describe that because that's actually what I do feel inside is this sense of expansion, like it's like everything. It's like a the ampage of or the wattage or whatever the wattage of the light has just been like a floodlight, whew,
Mhm.
like and it's visceral, it's palpable. It's beyond the thought. So I just wanted to share that too because often in my own journey, if I've had sticky beliefs that, haven't been, that I would serve me to kind of let go of or loosen up at least, it starts with that sometimes that visceral experience to then integrate that into the awareness and then choose a different belief I bu- because I because it really anchor like you use the word anchors it in your heart, right?
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
anchors it somehow, and you're like, okay, every part of me is on board now. It's you know what I mean? It's like there's no one who's jumping ship or, rocking the sails. It's like everyone's like fully on board. Everyone's in harmony, together, like all these aspects of self, thoughts, emotions, body
Yeah,
in
all your
sync, I guess
bodies
is
are
a better way.
aligned, all your physical and emotional bodies, your emotions, your mental capacity, everything's aligned. That's what it feels like to me.
And as a dancer too, another word for that would be flow state, right? Being in that peak
Flow state,
performance,
yeah,
that flow state,
I love
right?
that. Mhm.
The grace.
Flow and ease, trust. I say that to myself a lot. Flow and ease, trust. Yeah, that's what you gotta have.
It's so true. And it's available for all of us. And we have so many opportunities to practice
Mhm,
and go into it and then learn through contrast, which feels better. And then, get curious about how do we get into it in the first place?
mhm.
What works, what takes us in, what takes us out. And I feel like these groups are a great way to play with that too, another playground to explore that.
Yeah, yeah, it is. We talked about beliefs, and I always think, "How can I think bigger than what I'm thinking now?" Because I think so I mean, I feel like my beliefs are huge, but then there always seems like there's still some limited beliefs that will come up that will surface. And I always wonder how much further do you have to go until you're completely,
Yeah.
have no limited beliefs, because there's a lot in the beginning. There's so many. And then you look back and go, oh, wow, I can't even believe I believe those things. Some of the things that we're taught, that we're all taught. And then
Yeah.
it just keeps going, right? It just keeps expanding. You just keep dropping limited belief systems.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, it's, I sometimes see it as, this is just an image I get in my mind, like it's sort of a playful image of a retractable mountain that just when I feel like I've gotten to the top of the mountain, then another mountain pops
Mhm.
up and then another one. I'm like, oh, come on, that's not fair. Like, stop
I
it.
thought we were there.
It's kind of like I see it as like a toy that like pops up and another one pops up. And I'm like, okay, come on, stop it. It's just, I've worked so hard to get here,
I think
So,
that first layer, that first step, is probably one of the most foundational ones, and probably one of the, I mean, just go through that one, and then I feel like it gets easier. It's like having the persistence to say, okay, I'm here, and I want to learn more about who we really are, and this power within, and what we're actually capable of. And that's what drives me. And there's so many miraculous things that happen. And I know there's more. There's always more.
yeah, it's realizing that it's something we can actually do. Like it's something it's a way we can approach living our life.
Mhm.
And, and I think that just opens up doors that I agree with you. That's the first biggest step to even recognize that that's even an option.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Anything else that happened this week that was magical or mystical for you?
Oh, I feel like there have been like actually a lot of little things, moments, uh, just the way people are talking about things around me. They're I feel like people are open, and I had a colleague of mine share with me. I'll just share that little story because it's kind of fun about how
Mhm.
well she was when she was traveling this summer, and her and her friend who had been traveling together had been biking, and then all of a sudden they were biking down a hill, but then they had to get back up the hill, and they were exhausted, and they thought, realistically, how are we going to get back up this hill? We need someone with a pickup truck to give us a lift. And they looked around, there was nobody around with a pickup truck. So she just put it out to the universe and asked, she said, it would be really nice if a pickup truck would show up. And sure enough, 10 minutes later, there was someone who pulled into the parking lot by the beach with a pickup truck. And they very, um, you know, playfully approached him and asked him if he would kindly give them a lift. And he said, well, I just want to go in the water first, but if you don't mind waiting till I'm done, I'd be happy to give you a lift. And because they needed a place to put their bikes. And it was both the story and the fact that she was even sharing that with me, that I was like, this is a different conversation. It's not, sometimes at work conversations, water cooler kind of classic conversations can go very differently, right? Where people
Mhm.
are, focused on different things, right? And you kind of leave the conversation going, I feel a little drained.
Mhm.
And this was a very different kind of conversation. And I've just been getting curious lately, and I've been like actually looking for it now, which I'm so grateful because I went in this year with the intention of, I really want to focus on, you know, the good stuff. I really want to focus on taking the very best care of myself and just keeping things simple and, just showing up for myself so I can show up for others and keep my
Mhm.
frequency high. And lo and behold, guess what has been out picturing at work? And uh, and then I was so grateful for that. I brought in all these croissants from a really nice pastry store in town for the main office and for the department office. And even people who would sometimes normally decline were like, I'll have one. Oh, this is nice. And and that's how I started my day at work. And it was so
Mhm.
nice. And just this feeling of appreciation. I was like, oh my gosh. And now, so then now the next thought I'm having is, how can I keep this going? How can I keep this joy juice? What can I, how, what in me invited this to be, as Sri and Kira would say?
Mhm.
And, how can I keep the flow going? How can I nourish the flow? Right? If there's a momentum building and I can feel it. So that's what's been present
Yeah.
for me. That's
So
felt
you gotta
natural.
keep that momentum. Well, you mentioned like 3 things, your intentions, your appreciation, because appreciation is one of the highest energies that you can be in, and, your frequency, and that's it. That's the secret sausage right there, being in that high frequency, because you'll continue to see the best version of everyone whenever you go to work.
Yeah.
It'll be fun and joyful.
Yeah, it makes it. And yeah, what's been present for you? Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And I said that sincerely. I just it popped out. I'm in that flow.
What's been showing up for me, everything's been good. Over the weekend, because it was a holiday weekend here in the US, I went home to visit my family, so 3 hours from here, and I would say that we had a little bit of a mystical experience, because a lot of that time just visiting friends and family was just having fun, just sitting, talking, catching up, um, being very present. And there was one day where, and I would say there are family and friends that are really looking at positive mindset and starting to dabble into manifestation and things like that. Not doing what we're doing here, like out talking about it like we are, but just their own education and curiosity. But one day we were sitting outside, just in lawn chairs talking, and one of the people that I and sometimes I get like real all of a sudden, I don't know if this happens to you, like kind of get a little bit like sleepy just for a couple minutes, and then I'm back. And during that time, one of the other girls had saw for the very first time an aura around someone, and the aura was uh, a purplish color and a pink color, and wanted and asked me what, wanted to know what that meant. And that's the first time she had ever had that sort of experience. And she hadn't been, you can practice aura reading, you can practice that, but she had not been practicing anything like that. And she said she was just like clear minded and it just happened. So she
Mm.
said it's more of like she was just like in this state of allowing. She wasn't trying to do anything, it just happened. Um, but I thought, wow, what is going on in this new world? It's wonderful. I love it. I love it all. I think we're going to see more and more of that for people.
You know what? You're so right. I can see that, and it's so beautiful to witness too those
Mhm.
moments where, and you said something, a couple of things that were really key too. She wasn't trying,
Mhm.
and she was just sort of open to it, right? Like
Mhm.
she didn't shut it down, and it's great when we can witness people having these not it always shows up when we're ready to receive it, right?
Yes.
And the beautiful thing is it's great to have people around us who this is just natural and just the way life is, and so there's no one around that person having that beautiful natural expansion moment, you know, to say otherwise, other than to support and in the sense of, celebrate that moment with the person. And just, and not even, it's not even about making a big deal about it. It's just about allowing it to be as natural as breathing, as natural as, and just let it unfold, it could support the energy to unfold and just be present to it and, acknowledge it. And in so doing, just be that beautiful soul mirror for the person experiencing it, that hey,
Yeah, and I think, this is important to say that if there's experiences like that, and it's the first time that we've experienced that, sometimes our paradigms or our limited beliefs will wanna pull us back and be like, "Oh, no, you didn't see that." You know what I mean?
Yes,
So I
yeah.
would say be open to it and just experience what you've experienced and accept, like you said, accept it as natural. Don't let our old paradigms pull us back, because she was describing to me, I saw it, and she said, then I looked away for a second, I looked back, and she said, and that's what I saw. And I know what I saw because, right? Because that old paradigm that we have, our old belief systems will kind of talk within our head saying, now, wait a minute, are you seeing that or not? Until it becomes more natural.
And that's the thing we were just talking about before too, that knowing, right? Where you just know, you
Mhm.
know what you experienced. And then that's where the stickiness, the mind to form can really, this is why these days I really say to my mind, thank you so much. You're just trying to keep me safe, you know? And I really appreciate you because you're
Yeah.
so good at it, you know? And at the
Mhm.
same time, what if maybe that thought, I didn't I didn't have to, like, believe that thought. I could appreciate it for doing what it does best, trying to keep me
Mhm.
safe, and what if I just trusted myself instead? That
Yeah.
knowing.
Mhm.
I don't have to figure everything out via my head. It's not the only gatekeeper, right? You know?
Mhm.
And, so oh,
Well,
I
I
love
think our
your
mind is sometimes the gatekeeper that doesn't allow the good in. You know what I mean? It's like locking us down into old paradigms. You gotta get through that. Um, but also, I also wanted to say that if people are experiencing this, and what I did whenever I started experiencing things was to journal it down, like the
good point.
day, what I experienced, because I didn't really talk to a lot of people about it in the beginning. Now I'm freely sharing, but I just journaled it down to get past the paradigm, because one day it might be like, now wait a minute, but then you have all those pages of journals and experiences of things that happen, and I think that helps you push into get out of that old paradigm and push into this, I don't know what we want to call this. It's almost like it's definitely a higher level of consciousness. Maybe this is what they call the new earth experience. Also, I don't know what the different terminologies are, but it's a different paradigm. It's a
De
different.
Yeah, definitely different paradigm, and al and also I feel like sometimes this is where as we do awaken and just having the courage to share it, you know,
Mhm,
trusting ourselves to know this is a safe space, and I think this is where also as for all of us, we're exactly where we need to be on the inner awakening journey as we're even like we're doing here, sharing this. You know, if any of you, uh, who are, you know, who've been watching our episodes and are here live and wanna comment, this is a great this is something you can a gift you can give yourself, right? To
yeah,
share it. This is a safe space where you can share it and, feel seen and
yeah,
heard, and so that that is louder than anything that the mind of form might seek to, you know, distract you by. And I've noticed too that when I've shared and I've just trusted myself to share in different contexts where my mind of form before would have told me, no, don't share there because they're not open
mhm,
to it. I prejudged
yeah,
situations when because I was scared in the beginning about sharing too much. So I like your point about journaling. It gave other people permission and it pleasantly surprised me. And it also helped me unwind the belief that I was alone, which again is an illusion in having
mhm,
these experiences, because all of these experiences are bringing us back to that sense of unity consciousness, because
mhm,
they're capacities that every single one of us has. And, you know, even something as a deck of playing cards. I remember when I was studying at the Transformational Arts College here in Toronto, and one of my teachers in the Divine Connections program was talking about tarot cards, and a lot of people can have like some stigma around tarot for many reasons. And we were taught it wasn't fortune telling, it was just divination. And um, the modern day playing card deck has within it embedded, you know, that whole um, system of, you know, reading signs and symbols. which is what is basically what our subconscious is doing when we're sleeping at night and we're dreaming, right? It's interpreting our experiences and relaying them back to us through signs and symbols. So this is just intrinsic to who we are as human beings, and it's natural for us to want to interpret signs and symbols, to get the rich layers of meaning and nuance from them, to receive our own guidance, because there's so much more than what we think there is, right?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I had a little tickle in my throat. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. We are about 50 minutes in. So,
Okay, we better wrap this up then.
yeah, was there
Threw us in the
anything else
time.
that you'd like to share?
I think I feel that that's complete for today. How about you, Jennifer? Anything else?
I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yes.
It was an interesting discussion. So I'm looking forward to next week, next Wednesday. And that chapter is called Chapter 15, Healing Wounds.
Ooh, actually, I feel like this was a good segue. What do you think? I
I
feel
think
like we
so
sort of
too.
touched into it a little bit.
Hmm. Yes. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. If you have any questions or any comments, we're streaming over a couple of different channels. We'll check those and we'll answer anything you have. Also, if you'd like to join us live on the show, please just put that into the chat and we'd love to bring you on live as well to answer those questions. So everyone have a wonderful week and we will see you back at 5 p.m. Eastern time next Wednesday. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.